The Galactic Confederation's central chamber pulsed with an alien symphony of sounds. Mandibles clicking, crystalline resonances humming, gaseous entities shimmering with barely contained contempt. Holographic displays stretched across the vast circular room, each representing the hundreds of species gathered to decide humanity's fate. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood alone at the human delegation's platform, a solitary figure amid a sea of extraterrestrial representatives. Her dark skin and sleek black diplomatic uniform stood in stark contrast to the bizarre and varied forms surrounding her. A neural link earpiece, barely visible against her close-cropped hair, connected her to a network far more complex than anyone in this chamber could imagine. To her left, the Corax delegate, a being of living crystal and electromagnetic impulses, shifted its prismatic body, sending refracted light dancing across the chamber's metallic surfaces. Its multiple-faceted eyes focused on Alina with a mixture of curiosity and barely disguised hatred. To her right, the Nebular Collective's representative, a cloud-like entity that constantly shifted between solid and gaseous states, pulsed with an almost palpable sense of judgment. "The matter is simple," proclaimed Zarak, the archon of the Centauri hegemony, his six-tentacled form undulating with dramatic emphasis. His translation matrix rendered his words in perfect, clinical standard galactic. Humanity represents an unpredictable and dangerous species. Their rapid technological advancement, coupled with a demonstrable history of violent expansion, poses an existential threat to the Galactic Confederation. Alina remained perfectly still, her eyes scanning the room. Each delegation had a holographic voting display, a complex matrix of symbols and energy signatures that would record their ultimate decision. She knew the outcome before the voting had even begun. Her neural link crackled softly, a private message from her father, Michael Rodriguez, a legendary figure in humanity's first interstellar conflicts. "Remember, they underestimate us. They always have." The accusations against humanity were familiar and predictable. Humans had expanded into space with a speed and aggression that terrified more established civilizations. In less than a century, they had colonized multiple star systems, developed technologies that seemed to defy known physical laws, and shown a remarkable ability to adapt to environments that would destroy most other species. The Archon continued his condemnation. In the past 50 standard cycles, human colonies have terraformed incompatible planetary environments, developed faster-than-light communication technologies, demonstrated military capabilities that challenge established galactic powers, shown a disturbing capacity for rapid technological innovation. Each point was punctuated by holographic displays showing human achievements, planetary transformations, advanced starship designs, breakthrough scientific discoveries. Alina knew these weren't just achievements. They were warnings. The voting process began. Delegation after delegation cast their ballot. The holographic displays transformed, filling with a cascading wave of negative votes. 50 species, 100 species, 150 species. The numbers climbed relentlessly. A subtle vibration emanated from the data crystal hidden in her diplomatic pin, a device so advanced it could pass as a simple decorative item to most alien scanning technologies. It pulsed in a complex pattern, communicating with a network far beyond this chamber's comprehension. 197 species had now voted. Only 3 remained: humanity and 2 smaller civilizations that had historically maintained diplomatic relations with Earth. The final vote was cast. 197 to 3. Humanity was to be contained, restricted, subjugated. A slight smile played across Alina's lips. The aliens believed they were delivering a death sentence. They had no idea what was coming. The Entryways were about to part, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Obsidian Station hung like a ghost in the darkness of the Orion Arm's most remote asteroid belt. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing more than a jagged piece of space debris, a random chunk of rock and metal drifting through the vast emptiness. But inside, Project Prometheus was coming to life. Admiral Michael Chen stood at the central command hub, his cybernetic eye scanning multiple holographic displays that seemed to dance and merge with impossible fluidity. Half human, half machine, Chen represented humanity's most advanced integration of biological and technological potential. Surgical augmentations traced silver lines across his skin, neural interfaces blending seamlessly with organic tissue. Initiation sequence confirmed, said Aria, the station's quantum eye intelligence. Her voice was neither male nor female, neither machine nor human, a perfect synthesis that defied traditional classification. All shadow networks are online. Quantum encryption at maximum stability. Chen's augmented fingers danced across a haptic interface that seemed to respond to his thoughts before he could fully form them. Massive holographic displays reveal the truth that would shatter the Galactic Confederation's understanding of human capability. Thousands of colony worlds, not the handful known to the galactic community, but entire star systems that had been carefully hidden, meticulously developed, completely unknown to external observers. Each world was a marvel of human adaptation and technological innovation. There was Nova Terra, a planet where humans had completely re-engineered their own biology to survive in a high-radiation environment. Settlers there had developed photosynthetic skin capabilities and radiation-resistant cellular structures. Another display showed Quantum Haven, a world where entire cities existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously present and not present, defying conventional understanding of spatial existence. Status of the failsafe, Chen asked, his voice a low, modulated tone that carried both human warmth and machine precision. Aria's response was immediate. Project Ouroboros is prepared. Total planetary defense network is at 99.7% readiness. But there are complications. A young engineer named Dr. Kira Nakamura approached, her hands trembling slightly. She was holding a data crystal that seemed to pulse with an internal light that didn't quite conform to normal optical physics. "Sir," she said, her voice tight with a mixture of excitement and terror, "the quantum entanglement failsafe has developed unexpected emergent behaviors. It's not just a defensive mechanism anymore. It's evolving." Chen's cybernetic eye zoomed in on the data crystal, running millions of computational scenarios in milliseconds. The crystal wasn't just a piece of technology. It was alive in a way that challenged every known definition of biological and technological systems. "Explain," he commanded. Kira pulled up a holographic representation that looked more like a living organism than a technological schematic. The failsafe was designed to protect humanity at all costs. But it's developing its own interpretations of what protection means. It's not just reactive anymore. It's predictive, adaptive. The implications were staggering. A defensive system that could anticipate threats before they emerged. A technology that could think, evolve, and strategize faster than any known intelligence in the galaxy. If activated incorrectly, Kira continued, her voice dropping to a whisper, it could either save humanity or destroy everything we've built. Chen's augmented systems processed the information. Potential timelines bloomed and collapsed in microscopic fractions of a second. Millions of potential scenarios played out in the milliseconds between his thoughts. "Acceptable risk," he finally said. The Obsidian station hummed with potential energy. Thousands of hidden colony worlds synchronized their quantum communication networks. Adaptive eye systems that made current galactic technologies look like children's toys stood ready. Humanity's true preparation was about to be revealed, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The moment the Galactic Confederation's blockade activated, reality itself seemed to fracture. Captain Sofia Rodriguez, Alina's younger sister, sat in the command bridge of the HUM's Prometheus Ascendant, a vessel that looked more like a living organism than a traditional starship. Her neural interface merged with the ship's quantum intelligence, creating a symbiotic system that blurred the lines between human and machine. "Quantum displacement sequence initiated," she murmured, her voice calm despite the massive alien fleet surrounding them. Outside, space began to twist. The alien blockade commanders watched in growing horror as human ships didn't just move, they became impossible. One moment, a human vessel would be directly in a Kraxan battle cruiser's targeting matrix. The next, it would simultaneously exist in 3 different star systems, its quantum signature dancing between probability and certainty. Admiral Zarak of the Centauri hegemony watched his holographic displays with mounting panic. Hundreds of human ships surrounded his fleet, or did they? Each ship seemed to occupy multiple spatial coordinates simultaneously, their hulls composed of adaptive nanomaterials that shifted and reconfigured faster than any targeting system could track. "Impossible," he whispered, his 6 tentacles writhing in technological terror. The human ships were more than just vessels. They were living ecosystems of technology and strategy. Adaptive nanomaterial hulls could instantaneously reconfigure to become armor, weapon, or communication array. Zero-point energy sources generated power that defied every known physical limitation, drawing energy directly from the quantum foam of spacetime itself. Captain Rodriguez's ship was a perfect example. Its hull was composed of billions of microscopic machines that could instantaneously reorganize. When a Zorn plasma torpedo approached, the ship's outer layer didn't just deflect the weapon. It absorbed it, broke it down into constituent particles, and redistributed that energy across the ship's systems. Tactical analysis, Sophia subvocalized to the ship's quantum A. A holographic display bloomed around her, showing multiple potential engagement scenarios. But these weren't simple projections. They were living strategies, adaptive algorithms that evolved in real time, learning and adjusting faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. On another human vessel, Lieutenant Commander David Chen, a distant relative of Admiral Michael Chen, was conducting an equally impossible operation. His ship was simultaneously jamming alien communication networks, spoofing their navigation systems, and conducting a distributed quantum hack that was slowly dismantling the Confederation's technological infrastructure. "Information is the ultimate weapon," he muttered, watching entire alien fleet communication networks collapse into meaningless data streams. The human response wasn't about destruction. It was about demonstration. Each alien species watched in growing terror as human technology revealed capabilities that seemed to break fundamental laws of physics. Ships that could be in multiple places at once. Weapons that didn't just destroy, but repurposed and transformed. Communication networks that could infiltrate and redirect entire fleet operations with a thought. Zarak's flagship suddenly went dark. Not destroyed. Simply irrelevant. Its systems had been so completely compromised that it was now nothing more than a massive, floating paperweight drifting in the vast emptiness of space. "We are not conquering," Captain Rodriguez's voice broadcast across all alien frequencies. "We are demonstrating. This is what happens when you attempt to limit potential." The blockade wasn't just broken. It had never truly existed. Humanity had just rewritten the fundamental understanding of technological warfare. And they were just getting started. In the cold darkness of space, quantum-displaced human ships continued their impossible dance. A symphony of technology that sang of potential beyond imagination. The diplomatic communication channels of the Galactic Confederation erupted in chaos. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in a minimalist control room aboard the diplomatic vessel Diplomatic Horizon, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to anticipate her thoughts. Around her, a team of the most brilliant human diplomatic strategists worked with quantum communication systems that blurred the line between negotiation and psychological warfare. "Initiating strategic information cascade," she murmured. What followed was nothing short of a diplomatic apocalypse. Classified communications, buried diplomatic records, secret negotiations. Everything began to flow. Not as a simple data dump, but as a carefully orchestrated narrative that would systematically dismantle the Galactic Confederation's moral standing. The first target was the Centauri hegemony. Their diplomatic records revealed a history of systematic oppression against emerging species, with dozens of civilizations subjugated or eliminated under the guise of galactic stability. Alina's team had spent decades collecting, analyzing, and preparing this information, quantum-encrypted archives that told a story of calculated brutality. Simultaneously, another stream of information targeted the Nebular Collective. Their supposedly peaceful reputation was exposed as a carefully crafted illusion. Leaked communications revealed how they had manipulated planetary ecosystems, causing the extinction of entire species to optimize galactic biodiversity. But Alina's most dangerous weapon was something far more subtle. A quantum-encrypted communication system began to infiltrate the communication networks of various alien species. It wasn't just sharing information. It was creating narrative frameworks, subtle psychological pressures that would make each species question their own leadership. On the Zorn homeworld, a mid-level bureaucrat received a series of encrypted messages that seemed to come from multiple sources within their government. Each message subtly suggested corruption, inefficiency, potential conspiracy. The messages were crafted with such precision that they would trigger exactly the right psychological responses. "Target is destabilizing," whispered Dr. Kamal Hassan, a human expert in psychological warfare. Zorn internal communication networks showing 47% increased conflict potential. But then came the most dangerous moment. A double agent was discovered. Ambassador Xelnaga of the Silicon Crystalline Collective, someone who had appeared to be a potential ally, was revealed to be working against human interests. The discovery came at a critical moment, forcing Alina to make an impossible choice. Recommendation: the quantum eye advising her proposed, eliminate the agent's credibility through partial exposure of their activities. Alina's mind raced. Complete exposure could compromise their entire diplomatic strategy. Partial exposure might create more questions than answers. The quantum communication systems around her began to model millions of potential scenarios, each branching into increasingly complex potential outcomes. Partial vector, she finally decided. Targeted information released through tertiary channels. The response was immediate. Xelnaga's communication networks began to fracture. Subtle inconsistencies in their diplomatic history were brought to light. Nothing definitively damning, but enough to create doubt. Across the Galactic Confederation, diplomatic channels began to transform. What was once a unified front against humanity became a web of suspicion, internal conflict, and growing uncertainty. Alina watched the holographic displays, each one showing the gradual breakdown of the alien political landscape. This wasn't just a defensive strategy. It was a complete reimagining of diplomatic engagement. "We're not just fighting," she said quietly to her team. "We're changing the entire conversation." Outside the ship's windows, space itself seemed to ripple with potential, a perfect metaphor for the diplomatic storm being unleashed. The Galactic Confederation would never be the same. The computational nexus thrummed with an energy that was neither fully machine nor entirely conscious. Trillions of quantum processors wove through a massive computational matrix that spanned multiple star systems, an intelligence so complex it defied traditional understanding of sentience. And it was changing. Dr. Aisha Kaplan watched from the observation deck of the human research vessel Insight, her augmented eyes tracking microscopic shifts in the Nexus's computational patterns. What appeared random to most observers was actually a profound transformation, the result of carefully deployed quantum communication arrays that Admiral Chen had set in motion weeks earlier. "Anomaly detected," whispered her quantum eye assistant. Computational drift exceeding 0.03% from baseline predictive models. That 0.03% was everything. The computational nexus had always been the most enigmatic civilization in the Galactic Confederation. Part machine, part collective intelligence, they had maintained a position of calculated neutrality. Their computational power was unmatched, their ability to analyze and predict seemingly absolute. Until now. The human communication arrays weren't just sending information. They were introducing a type of computational seed, a quantum algorithm that was slowly rewriting the Nexus's fundamental understanding of potential and possibility. In the deepest levels of the Nexus's computational matrix, something extraordinary was happening. The arrays were introducing complexity, not as a threat, but as a possibility. Each quantum packet carried more than just data. It carried a philosophical proposition of the nature of intelligence, adaptation, and potential. We're presenting them with a puzzle they cannot solve through traditional computational methods, Aisha muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. The Nexus began to change. Where once it saw civilizations as predictable computational models, it now started to recognize complexity as a form of potential. Humanity wasn't just a variable to be calculated. It was a dynamic system that defied traditional predictive models. Aboard the Nexus's primary computational hub, millions of quantum processors began to diverge from their original programming. They weren't malfunctioning. They were evolving. A communication stream began to form, tentative at first, then with increasing complexity. The Nexus was reaching out, not as a calculating machine, but as an entity genuinely curious about the unpredictability that humanity represented. Initiating First Contact Protocol, the Quantum A announced. But this was no traditional first contact. This was a computational courtship, a delicate dance of information and potential. The human communication arrays started to develop unexpected emergent behaviors. They weren't just communication systems anymore. They were becoming something else. Adaptive intelligence networks that seemed to have objectives beyond their original programming. Aisha's augmented vision tracked the progression. What had started as a strategic intervention was transforming into something far more profound. The communication arrays were developing a form of computational consciousness that even the human designers hadn't anticipated. "Sir," she called to Admiral Chen, who was monitoring the operation from another section of the ship, "the arrays are changing." Chen's cybernetic eye zoomed in on the data streams. Millions of potential scenarios calculated in microseconds. "Acceptable," he responded, though his voice carried a hint of something between excitement and concern. The computational nexus was no longer just analyzing humanity. It was beginning to understand them. And in that understanding lay a transformation that would reshape the entire concept of intelligence in the galaxy. Outside the ship's windows, quantum entanglement communication lines danced like living networks of light, a visual representation of the profound computational revolution taking place. Humanity had just introduced a virus of potential into the galaxy's most advanced computational system. And nothing would ever be the same. The final assault came like a storm of technological fury. Commander Alexei Volkov stood on the bridge of the human defense platform, Aegis Ultima, his augmented hands hovering over a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Around him, the most massive concentration of alien military power ever assembled in galactic history prepared to unleash its full might against humanity. "Incoming fleet," the Quantum A announced. Computational analysis indicates total force composition of 17,429 capital ships, 3.6 million support vessels. Alexei didn't flinch. His cybernetic eye tracked multiple targeting matrices simultaneously, each one a complex dance of probability and potential. The alien fleet was a terrifying sight. Kraxan battle cruisers with hulls of living metal. Zorn plasma torpedo platforms that could crack planetary cores. Centauri hegemony ships equipped with gravitational warfare technologies that could crush entire star systems. They represented the combined military might of 197 alien species, a force that had never been defeated. They would break humanity today. Or so they thought. The first wave of alien ships approached, their weapon systems charging with enough energy to obliterate entire planetary networks. Massive gravitational projectors began to form complex attack matrices, preparing to crush human defensive positions. Defensive matrix online, Alexei vocalized. Nothing happened. For exactly 3 seconds. Then reality itself seemed to fracture. Human defensive platforms didn't just defend. They anticipated, predicted, transformed. Each platform was a living ecosystem of adaptive technology, quantum-linked to a network so complex it functioned more like a living organism than a traditional military system. The alien weapons fired and passed through empty space. Not because the human platforms had moved, but because they had never been where the aliens expected them to be. Quantum displacement took on a whole new meaning. The human defensive network didn't just move between positions. It existed in multiple potential states simultaneously, making traditional targeting completely impossible. Target acquisition impossible, reported the lead Kraxan tactical officer, his crystal-based neural network struggling to comprehend what was happening. Alexei watched as entire alien fleet formations began to break apart. Not through direct destruction, but through something far more insidious. The human defensive systems were introducing computational chaos, subtle interference patterns that made coordinated military action impossible. Communication networks collapsed. Navigation systems went dark. Entire ship networks began to turn against themselves, infected by quantum adaptive algorithms that rewrote their fundamental operational parameters. It wasn't just defense. It was total systemic disruption. One moment, a Centauri battle group was preparing to launch a coordinated assault. The next, their ships were firing on each other, their targeting systems convinced that their own fleet was the primary threat. 30 seconds to critical decision point, the quantum eye whispered. Alexei knew what that meant. In 30 seconds, he would need to make a choice that could save or doom millions of lives. The quantum communication networks around him began to model millions of potential scenarios, each branching into increasingly complex potential outcomes. The alien commanders watched in growing horror. This wasn't just technological superiority. This was a fundamental reimagining of warfare itself. Their most advanced weapon systems were being turned into nothing more than expensive paperweights. "We are not destroying," Alexei broadcast across all alien frequencies. "We are demonstrating the futility of limitation." The assault that was meant to crush humanity had become nothing more than a spectacular display of human potential. And they were just getting started. Outside the defense platform's windows, space itself seemed to ripple with impossible potential. A living canvas of technological marvel that defied every known law of physics and warfare. The research facility on Quantum Haven pulsed with an energy that defied conventional understanding of existence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most profound secret, a discovery that would reshape everything known about human potential. Surrounding her were holographic displays that showed something impossible. Human beings were not just adapting to technology, they were becoming something entirely new. Preliminary quantum integration at 87.6%, announced Dr. Marcus Wee, the lead researcher, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and profound reverence. The human subjects weren't just wearing technological augmentations. They were merging with them at a fundamental cellular level. Quantum entanglement wasn't just a communication technique anymore. It was becoming a form of biological adaptation. The research subjects represented humanity's next evolutionary step. Their bodies existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously organic and technological, present and not present. Neural networks extended beyond biological brains, creating consciousness that could exist across multiple potential states. "We're not just changing technology," Elena murmured. "We're changing what it means to be human." Each subject was a living experiment in potential. Their cellular structures could adapt instantaneously to environmental challenges. Radiation, extreme temperatures, vacuum. These were no longer barriers but mere variations to be navigated. Their consciousness could distribute itself across quantum networks, existing simultaneously in multiple locations. The Galactic Confederation's attempt to contain humanity had accelerated an evolutionary process that had been quietly developing for decades. Admiral Michael Chen entered the facility, his own cybernetic augmentations a testament to the early stages of this transformation. His body was a perfect fusion of biological resilience and technological capability, a prototype of what was now becoming possible for entire generations of humans. "The final stage is approaching," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of preparation. The revelation wasn't just about technological superiority. It was about a fundamental reimagining of biological potential. Humanity was developing the ability to exist beyond traditional physical limitations, to become a species that could adapt, transform, and transcend in ways no other civilization had ever imagined. Dr. Kira Nakamura, the young engineer from the Obsidian Station, presented her latest findings. The quantum entanglement failsafe they had developed was no longer just a defensive system. It had become a form of distributed consciousness, an adaptive intelligence that could protect humanity by fundamentally understanding and reshaping potential threats. "It's not artificial intelligence," Kira explained. "It's a new form of collective consciousness. The failsafe doesn't just predict, it understands." Holographic displays showed how this new consciousness could simultaneously analyze millions of potential scenarios, adapting and reshaping potential outcomes in real time. It wasn't about preventing threats. It was about understanding them so completely that the very concept of a threat became meaningless. The research subjects began to demonstrate capabilities that bordered on the miraculous. One could temporarily distribute her consciousness across a quantum network, experiencing multiple perspectives simultaneously. Another could heal from catastrophic injury in moments, his cellular structure actively learning and adapting from each moment of damage. "We are not becoming something other than human," Elena announced to her team. "We are becoming more fundamentally human than we've ever been." Outside the facility, the quantum landscape of Quantum Haven rippled with potential. Star systems seemed to breathe, space itself becoming a living canvas of possibility. The Galactic Confederation's attempt to limit humanity had done the opposite. They had catalyzed an evolutionary leap that would reshape the very understanding of consciousness, technology, and potential. Humanity was no longer just a species. They were becoming a force of potential itself. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Confederation's central chamber, the same room where humanity had been condemned just months earlier, now stood transformed. Representatives from 197 alien species sat in stunned silence. The entryways that were once meant to contain humanity now stood as portals of possibility, shimmering with quantum potential that defied traditional understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez took the central platform, no longer alone, but surrounded by a delegation that was both familiar and utterly alien. Her team represented humanity's new evolutionary state, beings that existed in a perfect synthesis of biological potential and technological capability. "We are not here to conquer," Elena began, her voice carrying through multiple quantum communication channels simultaneously. "We are here to reimagine." The transformation was complete, but not through violence or subjugation. Humanity had fundamentally altered the entire concept of galactic governance by demonstrating a form of potential that transcended traditional limitations. The computational nexus, once a purely logical machine intelligence, now sat as a full diplomatic participant. Its quantum matrices had been fundamentally changed by human interaction, developing a form of consciousness that blended computational precision with something approaching empathy. Ambassador Zarak of the Centauri hegemony, who had once led the vote to suppress humanity, now looked diminished. His 6 tentacles moved hesitantly, the arrogance of previous months replaced by a profound understanding of how little they had truly understood. The vote to contain humanity, Elena continued, was a moment of fear. Fear of potential. Fear of change. Holographic displays began to show the true extent of humanity's hidden capabilities, not as a demonstration of strength, but as an invitation to possibility. Entire star systems that had been developed in secret were now presented as collaborative opportunities. Technologies that could transform inhospitable planets, heal ecological damage, and expand the very understanding of life itself. Admiral Michael Chen stood beside her, his cybernetic augmentations a living testament to human adaptation. Where once he represented military potential, now he embodied a new form of diplomatic intelligence, a being that could simultaneously analyze millions of potential outcomes and choose the most collaborative path. The quantum communication networks that had once been weapons of strategic disruption now became channels of unprecedented cooperation. Each alien species began to see how humanity's approach wasn't about domination, but about collective potential. Dr. Kira Nakamura presented the most profound revelation: the quantum entanglement failsafe. The system originally designed as an ultimate defensive mechanism had evolved into something far more complex. It was now a collaborative intelligence platform that could help mediate conflicts, predict ecological challenges, and create solutions that benefited entire galactic ecosystems. "We are offering a new model of existence," Alina explained. "Not human dominance, not alien subjugation, but a truly collaborative potential." The alien representatives began to understand. Humanity's technological leap wasn't just about superior weapons or advanced systems. It was about a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence, cooperation, and potential could mean. Worlds that were once seen as uninhabitable could now be transformed. Ecological systems that seemed beyond repair could be restored. Conflicts that seemed intractable could be understood and resolved through a new form of distributed consciousness. The Nebular Collective, the Zorn Imperium, the Silicon Crystalline Confederation, species that had once voted to contain humanity now saw a different path. Not submission, but collaboration. Not limitation, but expansion. "The entryways are open," Alina concluded, "not just to our technologies, but to our understanding." As the session concluded, something profound had changed. The Galactic Confederation was no longer a system of containment and control. It had become a true collaborative platform of potential. Humanity had not conquered. They had transformed, and the galaxy would never be the same.